Hello, my name is Christina Kean, teacher at Cold Lake High School. A bunch of us science teachers got to attend a National Science Teachers Association conference in San Antonio, Texas a week ago. We learned many things at this conference. The conference is an international conference which allowed all of us teachers to go to a variety of workshops and a few special sessions. Now, I'm going to invite you to come for a ride with us as we see how these teachers are going to look at things differently and make science fun for our students. Welcome back. We're here with scientist Miss Rose Lapointe. Now, Miss Rose Lapointe, could you tell me what the most interesting lab you learned about at the NSTA conference?
Well, when I was at NSTA, I learned about how we could tell how much sleep you've had the night before by the amylase that your body is producing. So what you do is you can have a whole ranking scale, and the students can compare to the scale, and it'll tell by how much starch your body digests in a little cup of spit, which is always fun to collect from your students. And then what we'll do is we'll compare to each other and to the scale so you can see how much sleep you had the night before. I learned it during a forensic science lab, which we don't have a lot of up here, which was amazing.
That's really cool. Now, is this something you can apply in your class?
For sure. We have a section of Science 9 where we have to talk about enzymes. Amylase is an important enzyme in our body, and that's why we need to talk about it.
That's really cool. Science rules. We're back. We're talking about physics now. This is scientist Mrs. Deirdre Squires.
That's me.
She's going to tell us about the most influential speaker she met with at NSTA conference. Please tell us, Ms. Squires.
Okay, so this year, as well as 2 years ago when I went to science conference, I got to go see this cool guy named Alfred Gunther, and he's he's over 70 years old, and he has the coolest physics demos and physics labs ever. So 2 years ago when I went, I was able to learn how to turn my head into a speaker, which was pretty cool, and the students love it. And this year I learned how to make an electric guitar, and I also learned some really cool demos on explaining to kids how to do relative motion. He's a pretty cool guy, and I hope one day I'll be as cool as he is.
That's awesome. So cool. Science rocks. We're here with scientist Kelly Johnson in the chemistry lab. At the NSTA conference, Kelly attended a session on limiting reagents and learned a really cool lab demo that he's already used in the classroom. Kelly, can you tell us about this demo that you've done?
Sure. One of the concepts in stoichiometry and chemistry 20 is the idea of limiting reagents, where when a reaction takes place, one of the two reactants gets used up, and one's limiting and one is excess. And we did that by doing a reaction with sodium carbonate and vinegar. And so the students pipetted up 10 ml samples of acetic acid and reacted some sodium carbonate. And the sodium carbonate is each balloon. And in each, we had 6 trials. In each one, the amount of sodium carbonate went up. So their prediction was the one with the most sodium carbonate will therefore get the biggest amount of carbon dioxide gas produced. And what they noticed, that didn't happen. They noticed in the first 4, the balloons got bigger, so I produced more carbon dioxide, but in the last 2, we had the same amount of gas. And so then they had the idea that, well, my reaction must have stopped. And then they noticed down at the very bottom, there's actually some sodium carbonate left over. And so the idea of an excess and limiting reagent changed. At the start of the lab, my limiting reagent was the sodium carbonate, but at the end of the lab, my limiting reagent was the vinegar. So right in the middle was my mole ratio when I hit for equal.
That's really cool. I bet you the kids enjoyed this lab, Kelly.
It was a great lab. Did it with my 3 classes, and we tweaked it every time, so it looks really good now.
Awesome. Science rocks. All right, we're back with scientist Mr. Matt Hundley. He's going to tell us what the coolest session was that he went to at the NSTA conference. Matt, tell us.
At the NSTA conference, I was able to go to a conference about the planets and how we're discovering planets that are light years far, far away, just using the light as they pass in front of their sun. So as they pass in front of their sun, the light dips down just a little bit, and then it goes back up to full light rays, which we're able to discover planets that might be Earth-like and might have life on them, which kids will find really interesting.
Now, Mr. Matt Huntley, is this something that you could use in your classrooms?
Definitely, because we talk about space in grade 9, and kids absolutely love talking about maybe life out there in the universe.
That is really cool. Science rules. We're back with scientist Squires. She's thinking differently in her classroom. She's going to show us a cool demo that she learned at the NSTA conference.
Okay, so here we just have a piece of copper metal tube, and you can see a little glass here just to show us what's happening. And this is just a magnet. I'm going to take this magnet, I'm going to put it into the tube, and as you can watch, it drops a lot slower than what you would expect. Ah, that's science. So what happens is the magnet, as it travels through, produces a current in the copper rod, and the current in the copper rod then produces a magnetic field that opposes the direction of movement of the magnet. And that's Lenz's law, and that's a tough one for kids to get, and this certainly helps.
Welcome back. We're at Cold Lake High School in the biology lab with scientist Jennifer Dusyk-Johnson. She learned a really cool thing at her genetics session at the NSTA conference. She's already even tried using these in her classroom. Jennifer, could you tell us more?
Absolutely. So at this session that I went to, which was great, it was called Crazy Traits, they gave us an example of a model of a kit where we can look at numerous different traits, and that's what's in those bags Mrs. Kean is holding. And basically we put a kit together with a bunch of different options, and the students then will get a little poker chip and they'll flip it to tell them if their trait for their organism is dominant or recessive. And then they basically build an organism. And once they build their organisms, some of them have females, some of them have males, then the breeding season begins. And they breed their organisms together, and they do their Punnett squares like this to figure out what their offspring will look like. So for example, in this little one here, our female has mouse ears and the male has elephant ears, and the elephant ears are dominant, so when they interbreed, 100% of their offspring are going to have elephant ears. So the students do this, and then they basically are able to picture what their potential offspring would look like. So it was an awesome lab, the kids loved it, and it's a great way to teach genetics. Thanks, Osum.
That's really cool.
Hi, we're here today with Mrs. Kean, and Mrs. Kean came around earlier and asked us what all of us what our favorite part was when we went to San Antonio for the science conference. And so, Mrs. Kean, what is your favorite session that you went to?
That's a tough one. However, I do have a favorite. My favorite session that I went to, we talked about body systems. I learned a really cool activity. You take some Play-Doh and you can give it to students to manipulate different things. For example, you could take this person and you could get students to draw out specific systems onto the individual. For example, we could draw the digestive system, and we could use this in Biology 20 and some of our other general science courses. We also learned that you can take the Play-Doh and you can hide a pin in it where you want students to find a particular area of the body. It was a really cool session, and I learned some great things. Science rocks! Thanks, Osum!
In addition to several classroom sessions that we attended, it's also possible to attend field trips to explore the local ecosystems and ecology that is found in southern Texas.
After much anticipated arrival, we arrived at the Natural Bridge Cavern. We got to go on some really cool tours to explore some amazing views of this cave system. You can see for yourself the stalactites that are at the top of the pictures and the stalagmites which are at the bottom of these pictures. It was just a cool exploration of this awesome cave.
One of the field trip sessions we were able to participate in is behind-the-scenes exploration at SeaWorld. Here, as you will see, we were able to interact with the animals, and we learned a lot about their anatomy, physiology, and pathology, as well as animal husbandry and behavioral training techniques. One highlight for me was getting up close and personal with a beluga whale. They are really majestic animals with some unique adaptations. For example, their offspring are born gray in order to be well camouflaged in their mother's shadow, and they don't have a characteristic dorsal fin, which allows them to move easily underneath the ice. Overall, this field trip was an incredible experience.
I really enjoyed our SeaWorld field study and learning about how the scientists create environments that mimic the natural ecosystems, including light cycles and temperatures for the penguins.
That was just a glimpse of some of the fun adventures we went on and a few of the cool new labs and activities we will be using in our classrooms with our students. A professional development opportunity that was made possible by our partnership with Osum. We genuinely thank you.